Hello everyone! As you may already know, I have played every single BossHim fangame. No, not those ones because those are not available on the Game Jolt page, therefore I don't count those as canon. Sorry, cry about it. I thought I would take the time to dissect each game and determine my overall ranking of it. But first, how will I determine a game's ranking? When I play a new game, or go back to re-rank an old one, I split the gameplay into 3 different categories: casual, balance, and gameplay itself. I'll break these down so they're a lot easier to understand. Casual shows how hard this game is to play in a casual setting. Say you went back to replay it or got a friend to try it out for the first time. Is this suited for their skill level? Or is it a luck fest that tests the patience of everyone playing? For example, to put it nicely, this game, Alt F4, is not a casual game. The attack patterns are made in a way that only those who are of advanced skill level can read, understand, and overcome. Someone who hasn't beat Sans yet or isn't a master of dual wielding is very unlikely to beat this. This is a good segue into balance, which looks at how hard the patterns are to dodge on a consistent scale. If the difficulty curve isn't too erratic, that's my definition of balance. Now, I will say that this term is highly subjective. Some people have different views on what balance actually is. Some will tell you that something is balanced when in fact it really isn't, and vice versa. And lastly, gameplay. Does this game feel good to play? Is the progression actually worth it in the end? Are there any bugs or other flaws? In short, will a casual player run into a problem that will lock them out of finishing it even if they're really good at it? With that out of the way, let's get started with the earliest games. Hard Mode Sans is first, and I'm immediately giving it a D in all categories. Well, except for gameplay, I guess. Now why am I saying this? Well, this is like the average Hard Mode Sans take. However, unlike those games, this one is impossible. The patterns are super fast and unreadable on the first few tries, there's bullets that will kill you in a single hit, there's randomness which can destroy you, and finally, due to how one attack is structured, you will never beat it even if you had all the time in the world. Now, if you think I came to this conclusion on my own, hell no. I wouldn't sit through all of this when I already know someone has done it beforehand, and if they can't beat this, it's never happening. You can technically use debug, but that's kind of cheating. Anyway, that's Hard Mode Sans. DUSTDUST. What do I have to say about this game? Yeah, it can be beaten, but is it worth the hassle? I guess it depends. I will say this though, the use of a shield is for overcoming RNG spam, and it just falls short of being a good game due to the insta-kills. And it's also unfinished, which doesn't really help matters either. Learning the patterns can be rewarding, but only in the attacks you can actually read anything within. You can technically dodge everything in this game, but realistically, how often are you going to do that? Last Breath is another one of those games that hasn't been beaten yet, and it's very unlikely to ever be so considering the final part has not yet been reached by anybody. This is another D rank for several reasons. Insta-kill snipes, abusing RNG to elevate difficulty, unskippable intro, and unreadable patterns. Damage is a guarantee in this fight, and only having 5 food isn't anywhere near enough to compensate for the HP you lose along the way. Sure, the music is great, but the sprite work is mediocre at best, and as we all know, a chain is only as strong as its weakest link. This game doesn't really have a strong link at all. Is it worth trying to beat? Well, if you want to be in the Last Breath history books, go try this game for yourself and see if you can beat it. Good luck. Ah, who can forget good old Error? Now yes, I did make a segmented video showing that you can make it to the final attack, but even still that isn't really anything worth considering for a higher rank. For starters, if you're not used to the heavy pixelation, this game can be a nightmare to play. The patterns are almost unreadable even in their simplest forms, and of course, there are insta-kills. Good luck even beating the first attack. I have had like 20 deaths on that before I could pass it for the first time because I was in a position where I got insta-kill sniped. Now, I did mark this game as impossible to beat because of the final attack, but here is where it becomes very grey. It is hypothetically winnable if you get the best possible RNG, but realistically that's never going to happen to any player no matter how dedicated they are. And passing attack 13 on its own requires good RNG as well as insane execution. So that's the reason behind my verdict. This game does try its best with simpler attack patterns, but due to the final attack being the way that it is and how headache-inducing this game can be to play, it doesn't deserve a higher rank than D tier. Dusttrust Papyrus. This is another one of those unbeatable games. Well, technically not. A glitch can be performed which allows the final attack to be beaten, but that's kind of cheating. Anyway, as this is a forced no-hit game, I'm only going to give this one a C. Rather than slowly learn with ease, you have to memorize some fast patterns which can catch even the best players off guard. Nothing more to say than that, honestly. It does try to be fairer, but given you had to basically use a glitch in order to win, it's not worth playing. Dusttale Waterfall. Out of every BossHim game, this is one of my personal favourites. Well, as far as its rank goes anyway. It's marketed as a game that can hardly be cleared normally, but that's because the final attack on its own is hard enough to pass. Still winnable, but you basically need to master the game in order to win it, which, if you remember from Delete System 32, isn't really a good way to make the game hard. Either way, this game is C tier. I don't really have anything else to say about this game, except that it is one of the few older games that has the most potential for a no-hit. Just saying. Next up, we have Old Fatal Error. You thought Error was bad? Well, this game, while slightly better, is still garbage. D tier. Insta-kills in some attacks, some patterns require super precise movements, it's really RNG heavy and is a headache to play. It is a bit easier to read patterns because there's not much pixelation going on, but flashing colours all over the screen just makes it a horrible experience. The game is actually still winnable if you can learn all the patterns, but good luck. I will cover the remake of this game a little later. But first, we have the old version of Lethal Deal. I do like this game, but sadly I cannot say that for every time I play. There are some insta-kill attacks, but at least they don't snipe you like in the other games that use them. The patterns are simpler too, though some of them are borderline undodgeable. Especially in Phase 2, where if you're playing on normal mode, you do have to luck it out with the final attack. Despite all of these negatives, this game is the first one I am ranking on this list in B tier. Hooray! Well, how about we cover VHS Sans next? This is one of those games that's just okay. And I don't mean that in a sarcastic way. If you're playing on easy mode and just about understand the core mechanics of the game, you'll probably like it. That being said, I personally find this to be one of my favourite BossHim fan games as well, though it's very low on the list. Otherwise, this is another B tier game. I would like it better if RNG wasn't used so much to elevate the difficulty during Phase 2 and the special phase, and if the precision was also toned down slightly. Now, being honest here, I fall asleep to this next game. Old True Monsters is one of those games that tries to be easier but cannot resist having the normal boo gotcha kind of attack. It's annoying to figure out how you're supposed to make progress, and while the attacks are easier, they simply don't do this game justice. And if you want to learn the attacks, tying them to lines of dialogue isn't really going to work out. How I did my no-heal of this was to write it all down in a notepad and constantly eye towards it when I'm about to enter the next attack. While this game isn't as bad as Error or as precise as VHS Sans, I still put this in C. Dusttale Obsessed Monster. Ew. This game sucks. RNG spam all over the place, and I demand a refund. I suppose this is only ever really major fun if you're playing on debug mode or just love RNG slop. Otherwise, you will not get around the insta-kills which this game is loaded with, and the need to utilize your shield at optimal points. It's not that luck-based, but it can definitely feel that sometimes with how much you have to pay attention to at once, especially in Phase 2. D tier. Yuck. Up next is Error 404. What can I say about this game except for wow? Now, it does have the same RNG spam problem as Obsessed Monster does, but it's generally easier to avoid the patterns if you can manage your shield properly. I do have 2 gripes with this game though. First, the stun strings. These things suck and force me to use the shield, which I have to use later on to avoid taking a ton of damage. You do get some replenishment though in the fight, but eh. And second, the God Ray in the butterfly phase. This is yet another insta-kill. Oh, and speaking of, the final attack of the first phase can definitely lock you out of victory if you don't know or forget that the red bones are coming. I'm kind of mixed about this game. I like it because it was a fun no-heal to work towards, but with the unskippable intros and the RNG spam, I just cannot overlook those issues. C tier. Be quick, your clock is on its last 27 hours. Okay, jokes aside, this is another one of those alright fan games. Though there is an issue with this game that I will cover in most of the later ones, the air hit problem. For those who don't know how this works, check out my video explaining it, because if I go into detail about it here, this segment will last for a few minutes longer than I intend. Anyway, outside of that, the attack patterns here are far better than some of the other games. Old True Monsters had slow patterns that went on for eternities at a time, whereas this one has a better balance, but that doesn't make it perfect. Some attacks are easier than earlier ones, and the final attack just throws everything at you like you're meant to be a master at it. I'm putting this in B tier, though depending on your preference, you could mark it somewhere else. Ah, Glitch Time Trio, the fond memories I have of trying to no-heal this game. This is just Error 404, Error, and Fatal Error all combined into chaos that you can sort of understand, but not really. Bad luck can force you to use a heal that you might need later, but at least there are no insta-kill attacks like with their individual counterparts. That being said, I'm still going to put this in C tier because of how it uses randomness to elevate the game's difficulty instead of a set pattern like M-Katar's Bad Time Trio. This could have been a lot better, is all I'm saying. Next up, we have the Hacker's End VHS Sans. Once again, RNG is used to increase the difficulty of the attacks, but other than that, this is a decently fun game. This is the first BossHim game to actually use 60 FPS instead of the interpolation feature that Turbo Warp provides, so the movement feels a lot less sluggish. The issue with the RNG in this game is that you can be locked out of completing the game if you stress out, which you will no doubt do when you're forced to pick up the VHS tape to progress to the next phase without dying, or to collect 10 documents in phase 3. This goes to B tier. Alright, up next is Ink Sans. Now, I will say you should only ever really play this if you like playing long, difficult fan games, because this one is tough. There's an insta-kill in the Obsessed Monster attack which can catch you off guard, all of the attacks drag on for ages and use RNG to elevate the difficulty except for a few, I guess. God, I'm sick of seeing that. Either way, this is probably not the best BossHim game to pick unless you like to play in debug mode. This goes into C tier. I would rank this higher, but I cannot understand how a casual player is going to have any major fun with this game. Heck, all the people I know who have played this game had to write down their own notes in a Google Doc because they last for so long and there's only so much you can memorize at any time. Now we have a new contender, Underworld. This is the first fan game by BossHim that I've ever played, and my god, it is so much fun. Now this might just be confirmation bias, but once you clear the first attack, it doesn't seem to be that bad outside of the final attack potentially locking you out of victory. That being said, this is the first game in the series to go into the A tier. I would put any one of these in S if it weren't for the fact that you have to memorize some patterns if you want a chance at beating it. Next we have Lethal Deal, the remake. I have to say, this is one of those games that would be perfectly fine to play through if it weren't for the notorious air hit problem. No insta-kills, no sudden patterns out of thin air, though sometimes it can feel like you're taking an L because you got unlucky and not because you were bad at the game. This is another A tier game. I will point out that if the air hit problem gets fixed, I will likely try to do a no hit on phase 2. The reason why I haven't tried it before is because the air hit problem makes it functionally impossible. I say functionally because most of the time it's not even your fault, it's the fault of the engine rather than you. Maybe if there was a different category that got rid of these, we wouldn't have a problem with it? Maybe? Who am I kidding? Fatal Errors Remake. I have to say that this is fine if you know how the game works. If you're trying to learn the attacks, there's a good chance you saw all your HP being wiped out in about 400 microseconds. It's not exactly clear what skews the soul angle and shrinks the player's max HP, though if I had to guess, it would be tied to the colours of the attacks. There are acts to get rid of these oddities, but you can only do one at a time, and it's especially frustrating when you're nearing the end, and even though you're not touching the things that hurt you, you get hit anyway. And sometimes there is an attack that will hit you going into the ending cutscene. I don't know how this happens, so I'm led to think it's also an engine fault. Also, I will take a moment to address an issue that we originally had with this game. It's not known exactly why, but when playing the game for the very first time, the final attack lagged out so much that it made the game impossible to finish without using debug mode. This was later fixed in an update, but come on. To sum up, this would be alright if everything was explained better and it wasn't so punishing if you didn't know how to control the tethered soul. B tier. Now for the penultimate game on this list, True Monsters Remake. This is a major upgrade from the original True Monsters, though it does come with some drawbacks. For one thing, the game forces you to memorize some patterns, and while it is nice that there is a quick retry option on the game over screen, I wish it was also possible to practice the first and final attacks respectively. I mean, come on, I cannot see a reason why people would want to practice the healing attacks of all things. Either way, this is another A tier BossHim game. Maybe if it wasn't so reliant on memory it would be S, but... Last but certainly not least, Roaring Night crossover. Oh my god, this is a brilliant work of if Roaring Night was in Undertale. There are two things that I'm not particularly okay with in this game. First, unless you know how the fight works in Deltarune, you're going to be killed in 2 hits without putting on the Shadow Mantle, but hey, learning by death is fine, I suppose. And the second one is that sometimes the patterns can feel unavoidable because you're in the epicenter of 4 teeth going at the same speed and they're going faster than the 2 slow ones. At least the rest of the fight is good though. How does he do these effects? I cannot give this game S tier yet because it's simply unfinished, but it does show a lot of promise in A tier. Okay, for those of you who've just skipped to the end, here's a very zoomed in perspective of my tier list. Nah, seriously, I wanted to make this video for a while, and I would appreciate it if you watched it in full, but if you did, then thank you, and if you just skip to the end...
Windows will now smash your balls with a hammer.